Today's video is my homestead garden tour video. I just harvested this big old cabbage. It's so beautiful. I'm excited to be sharing this video with you guys, so we'll get into it right now. Definitely make sure that you stick around to the end of this video because I have a big announcement for you guys. Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, hello. My name is Carrie, and if you've been here before, welcome on back. If you don't know my story, I live here in New Zealand with my husband Alex, our dog Lonka, and we have some new farm friend additions, our orphaned lamb Wilson, and then we have Frida, Diego, and Waddles, which are our three little musketeer ducks. We live on 2.5 acres. This is a dream that we have dreamt up ever since my husband and I met. To go further back in our story, we moved from Los Angeles, and living in Los Angeles, we grew food there too. We were essentially urban farmers in our own right, and that kind of is where we planted the seed of wanting to live kind of more of a homestead lifestyle. We moved to New Zealand in January of 2021, so we've been here for a little over a year now. We found this homestead September 1st of last year, and so this time that you're watching this video, we have lived at this homestead for about 4 months now. And one of the first things we did when we got here was we went straight into the garden because we were lucky enough that this home had vegetable garden beds already built in. Now, if you have been following for a while now and you saw my how to build a vegetable garden video that I posted when we lived back in Los Angeles, if you're looking to do some garden beds and you want to get some ideas and maybe you're not as handy and you don't have power tools, that is an excellent watch. I will link it up here and in my description box for you guys. Let's go into the garden. I'll give you guys a tour. I'll talk to you guys about companion plants. I'll talk to you guys about how we water the garden. I'll talk to you guys about maybe some of my favorite garden tools, and we'll just go in depth and just talk about what we have going on. Let's go. Hey, little guy. Wanna come with me to the garden? Here you go. This is one of my favorite parts of the garden. I'll probably say that a million times, but really the entrance before I even get into the garden just brings me so much joy because of these hydrangeas that hang over, and I come here often to cut these and put them in bouquets in the house. Having cut stem flowers has been really enjoyable for me. When we were living in LA, for instance, I would constantly be picking up flower bouquets at the markets, and here I'm able to save quite a bit of money by just coming into the garden and cutting some flowers. So if you're somebody who loves having fresh flowers in your house all the time, growing some cut stem flowers might be a good thing. We got lucky that these already existed here, but I have big plans for at some point creating a whole cut stem flower garden, but that is a whole different project that I will eventually tackle. We have time. We plan on being here for a while. So let's go into the garden. One of the first things that we added to this garden was this trellis garden arch. We bought it in just its original form, which was like a light wood, and we painted it white. Our friend Charles helped us. And then we added these grapevines, which the grapes are already starting to grow. For us, we like to add things that are edible in the home. Like, we didn't want to just add vines. We figured let's do grapevines because why not have a vine that also produces food in some way or another? We also have grape hanging from our veranda on our deck of the house. So we might try to make some wine or do other things with the grape. Over time, we will learn more recipes to make sure that we're able to use everything. And that's part of being here, and yeah, it's just part of the learning process. So I don't know everything. I don't know exactly what we're going to do with all this grape, but we'll figure it out as we go along. If you have any suggestions about anything in this video, please let me know in the comments below. I really, honestly, in these types of videos that are about the homestead, about growing food, about taking care of the land, I really appreciate your feedback because so many of you have done this for a while, or you've done specific recipes, or you know more about flowers, and I've learned so much from you guys, so please let me know in the comments below if you have any suggestions. Also, speaking of suggestions, if you have any ideas of what we should name this homestead, because we've come up with a couple ideas and we keep going back and forth, we haven't settled on anything, and we want a name for it. So if you guys have been watching for a while, or if you've just found us and you feel like you know what we should name it, definitely let us know in the comments below, because you never know, we might pick your idea. So let's go into the garden now. I just keep rambling. So we'll give a little general overview, and if I can find some before pictures or video, I will insert them here. We had so much going on when we first moved here that I don't really think I got too much before shots, but I will add in as much as I can. When we first got here, this limestone pathway was not here. It was rock, just a little bit of pebble left, and then just weed all over the ground here and the pathway. Each of the garden beds, which we have 6, they were just completely full of weed, with the exception of some asparagus growing in the furthest back garden bed to the right, my right, and some kale growing on the furthest back garden bed to my left, which has thrived, and then we took it out because it was done recently. So those were the only 2 plants that were kind of continuing on, but for the majority, everything was full of weeds. Besides the garden beds, we also have some citrus trees growing here. These are going to be lemon trees. They are still young, but we're already starting to get some little fruit growing on them. It's nice to have citrus in here because we have an orchard, which is where our orphaned lamb Wilson lives, and there's no citrus in the orchard. There are so many beautiful fruit trees like apple, plum, peach, apricot, just tons of fruit, but no citrus, and we love to cook with citrus, so I cannot wait till these are ready to go. Also, the previous owners did such a great job in general of, one, planting the orchard, just planting so much beautiful trees and plants. We have just like so much gratitude for how much the previous owner planted. They also did berries all around the garden. So when we first moved in, we didn't even really realize what they were, and as time progressed, we realized we had gooseberry, we had red currant, we had black currant, and they were just beautiful and delicious and vibrant and juicy. And so that is what is surrounding all the way around the garden. As we go into the garden, I might harvest some things because there might be some stuff ready. I think there are some tomatoes ready. I definitely pulled a zucchini for zucchini bread yesterday. But speaking of harvesting, some of my favorite tools in the garden are harvesting baskets. And actually, when I lived in LA, I had a bit of a hard time finding harvesting baskets that were a good, decent price. This one I ended up buying on Etsy, and it was pretty expensive when I lived in LA, and it's like a vintage piece. I just had the hardest time. Here in New Zealand, it's so easy to find harvesting baskets at op shops. And where you live, no matter where you are in the world, definitely check out your nearest thrift store or op shop, Goodwill, to find harvesting baskets, because you can find a bunch of them for a really great price. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg on a harvesting basket like I did for this one. This is another one of my favorite tools when harvesting. It is a Kent and Stowe, just like wood and steel garden scissor to cut as you harvest, and gloves. I just use some regular old garden gloves. They're not that exciting, so I won't show you them, but those are my favorite tools. Let's start talking about what we have growing in the garden. First off, spring onion, one of my favorite things to grow, specifically because it just keeps producing for you. You just snip some off, bring it into the kitchen, chop it up. We use it over eggs, we use it in salads. We honestly use it in so much as a garnish. It adds like a really nice sort of oniony but super fresh taste to it. And it's just very hydrated, if that makes sense. Like you chop it up and it's got this like beautiful, hydrated, sort of fresh taste to it. And you can just put it in so many different things. And you can actually regrow this really easily and propagate it in your kitchen. And we do that a lot. If you buy this from the store, you can just propagate your own by putting the bulb in some water and letting it grow and then planting it into your garden. So that's actually how we started these. Here we have Swiss chard, or rainbow chard as we would call it in the US. Here in New Zealand they call it silver beet. So I've had to learn the terminology in the garden and what's different, because sometimes I'll be talking about Swiss chard and nobody knows what I'm saying around here. So this is one of my favorite plants just due to the beautiful coloring of the stems. We throw this into pretty much all of our salads, and you can do a lot of really beautiful like rolls with the leaves. We just love how beautiful it is. It adds so much beautiful color to the garden. There was just two big old bumblebees on these zucchini blossoms, which seeing bees always makes me very happy. I remember when I was younger, I would like run away from bumblebees because I was afraid they would sting me, and now I just want to like welcome them to the garden, ask them if they want a cup of tea, and tell them to stay a while, because I've learned just how crucial bees are, one for our planet and for our food, and for our vegetables, because growing food has taught me that most of our vegetables start as a flower. Of course, bees help pollinate flowers, which means bees in your garden creates more vegetables and healthy, happy plants. I'd say zucchini was one of the first vegetables that we grew in our garden that just like really excited us, because if you let zucchini go for a while, it can get humongous, and as new gardeners we were like, we grew this. That being said, you don't want them to get too big because they kind of lose their taste. You wanna harvest them at like a good size. Everybody's a little bit different, but I usually like to harvest them around this size because they just taste best. Zucchini is such an interesting plant, the way that it grows. It just kind of keeps like spilling over and creating new zucchinis. And one of the things that I love about the zucchini vegetable plant is that these blossoms are also edible and they're beautiful. I am Italian. My mom is a full-blooded Italian. And Italians love making zucchini blossom. They fry it, put ricotta cheese in, and it's super delicious. So I've made that several times. Also, just kind of chopping this up, putting it in a pan with your veg, and just throwing it on top of a salad is super delicious and a great way to use as much of the plant as you can. And also, this beautiful orange color just looks so vibrant on a dish. I'm going to pull this zucchini. Speaking of how I like to harvest zucchini, this is about the perfect size in my opinion. And so we're going to put this into the harvesting basket and keep moving on. This squash plant is just going and going. It has completely grown outside of the garden bed, which I have no problem with. I'm like, take up all the space you want, my friend. Also, similar situation with the beautiful blossom. So we've got some squash blossoms here, used in the same way that we use zucchini blossoms. And this is a butternut, ooh. Hello, tomatoes. They're a little bit wet because it rained last night, which is, side note, a beautiful thing about living in New Zealand, specifically this area of New Zealand that we're in. We get a lot of rain. Our homestead is on rainwater. So we're very grateful for the rain around here. We obviously wouldn't have been able to be on rainwater in Los Angeles, and in LA we had to do a lot of our own watering. To be completely honest with you, we don't really need to water this garden very often at all. If we have a couple of weeks of no rain, which is honestly very rare, then we might come into the garden and do some watering, and I think it's important, especially for our garlic and stuff. But for the most part, we rarely ever water our garden, which we really love because it feels good to just kind of have a garden that's thriving from Mother Nature's own existence. So it rained last night and the tomatoes are sending cold little dripples down my back. I'm not going to harvest any butternut squash because it's not ready yet. That one needs a bit more time, but I am going to get in there. I see a patty pan squash that's ready to be harvested, maybe a couple of them. And patty pan squash are super cool. They look like little spaceships. Here are 3 little patty pan squash that I just grabbed. My preference with patty pan is probably this middle size here, but to be honest, I've come to the conclusion that I don't mind what size patty pan squash is harvested. This one's probably a little bit too big because, as you can see, it kind of split open at the top. Still very good and definitely edible, but you want to be careful when it starts doing that just because pests get in there. But this one's perfect because it hasn't started to crack open yet, and we really like harvesting at this size because we just feel like we can consume it all when it's this size, and that it's just super easy to chop up and put into a roast veg dish and salads and just all the good stuff. If you have squash recipes, let me know because we're going to have a lot of squash, all sorts of squash. Tomatoes are, I want to say my favorite, but I think I've already said that about a few other ones. Tomatoes are the best. Honestly, I am the type of person, I'm grabbing some of these because they're ready to go. I am the type of person that could just take a nice, good old bite out of this tomato. I'm kind of holding myself back because this is first batch of tomatoes and I want some in the house right now. But I might just go for it. I love tomato so much. I can't even tell you. And my husband, Alex, is like the tomato keeper. Like, he is so good at just like keeping up with these. There is, in between all of these little bits and bobs, there is something called a sucker. And you gotta get rid of them all the time. You kind of really gotta care for your tomatoes if you really want them to thrive. They can get sick quite easily, and the suckers will just take the nutrients, and it's sort of like the nutrients and the water going into the plant will just go to the sucker, and that's why they're called suckers, because they sort of suck life and don't allow all the nutrients to go to the tomato. So tomato takes quite a bit of care, but it's so absolutely worth it because, I mean, I know for us, we use tomatoes in so many dishes all the time. I love making salsa, and it requires a lot of tomatoes, and then we love pasta, and we put tomato in there, and shashuka, and like all these just wonderful dishes that require a lot of tomatoes. Really important when planting tomatoes. Best companion plants to tomatoes are your herbs, like kind of your spicier herbs, like cilantro, a basil, a Italian parsley like we have here, or even like the curlier parsley. Planting those near tomato plants like we've done here, our parsley's just going crazy in the middle of all these tomatoes, keeps the pests away, because pests don't really like kind of the spiciness of parsley or cilantro or even basil. I like to think of basil as the perfect companion to tomatoes just because they go beautiful together on a dish, and maybe that's the Italian in me, like the caprese salad. And but anytime you put you know, a beautiful herb next to your tomato plant, you're doing a good thing because it protects the tomato. And we want to protect the tomatoes. There is something so satisfying about a cabbage. The fact that this big old baby can grow from a seed is just absolutely amazing. And so I'm just going to cut it at the stem. Almost got it. Gardening requires manual work sometimes. It's not just always, you know, easy. You just throw something in the ground and get it. You gotta work for it sometimes. Especially a cabbage stem. We're almost there. Oh my goodness. There is truly nothing more satisfying. Look at this baby. Woo! Required some work to get it off of its stem, but look at, oh. Are you okay? I think we're okay. We love cabbage for coleslaw. Alex makes an awesome coleslaw. We use it all the time for all sorts of different things. You can do cabbage rolls with the leaves to make sure that you use the whole plant, and it's another one of our favorites. These are dwarf beans. They're green beans, and they don't need the trellises like a lot of beans do because they don't really need to climb. And they're really cool because they give you quite a bit of beans quite often, and they are so delicious. And they're like beautiful big beans, and we've got a good amount of them. Get ready. There's a lot of them. Yeah. Amazing. This is definitely the best luck that we've had with green beans, and I think a lot of it has to do with them being these dwarf beans because once they start climbing, they're great, but we've just had better luck with the non-climbers. And then we've got lettuce here. Lettuce also really loves beans, and it loves a good parsley or herb. The herbs here do the same things to protect the lettuce that they do with the tomatoes, keeping the pests away. I personally prefer Italian parsley, but this curly parsley is nice at times too. And we've got more beans back there that I can harvest. This is the asparagus I was talking about before. Asparagus is quite cool because it will just continue to grow through the years. And we were actually quite surprised by it because we had done so much with these garden beds. The last two beds we'll quickly skim over because they are not ready yet to be harvested. We have some eggplant here, we have garlic right behind the eggplant, some potato, and then on the far end one right now, it's actually one of our front garden beds. As you walk in, it has lots more tomatoes that are newer that I planted from seed, and then we have some onion and some cucumber that just has started, and maybe a couple of other things. Definitely got ourselves a nice little harvest today, so we definitely have dinner ready to go and then some. If you want to know more about the design of our garden, how we went ahead and did the limestone pathway and did the garden mats, and how we did the no-dig garden bed. So we used the no-dig method, which our friends here in New Zealand, actually Little Farms in New Zealand, we went to a course with them and they taught us all about the no-dig. And I'd love to share with you guys exactly about how the no-dig works with the different layers like dags, your cardboard and seaweed, and your compost and your mulch and all of that good stuff. And I'd love to share with you guys exactly how we did the limestone pathway. And if that's something you guys are interested in seeing, please let me know in the comments below and give this video a thumbs up so that I know to create that video for you guys. I think that if anything, I hope that this video gives you some inspiration for the design or the look, or even just some inspiration to grow your own food, whether that be in a small pot. What I don't want is for this video to discourage you in any way. Obviously, we have 6 garden beds. We're living here on the homestead, and we kind of have leveled up to this point. I started growing veg in my apartment that didn't even have a balcony. I really loved growing herbs, and then my passion just progressed from there. And so I want you guys to know that you can do this, and you can find this passion and this hobby and be able to create this nutritious herb or vegetable in your own home. A lot of people grow on their balconies in pots. There's all sorts of ways to do it. So I hope that this video gave you some inspiration, and it is time for the big announcement. And I can hear my little orphaned lamb Wilson joining me in the excitement. I know, Wilson. So, very exciting. We are bringing back Soul Sugar Podcast. Those of you who have been following me for a long time, and those of you specifically who are listeners to the podcast, will be happy to hear this. I get DMs and comments regularly on YouTube saying, Carrie, when are you bringing Soul Sugar Podcast back? It has been on hiatus for almost a year now. The last episode that we posted was when we were in MIQ when we first moved to New Zealand, and I have been missing it like crazy. My co-host is going to be Alex. We have just tons of great episodes coming to you guys, and I can't wait to share it. You can listen to the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. So your big ones like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and just anywhere you can get your podcast. We will be publishing on the podcast every 2 weeks, and to keep up with what's going on in the podcast world on Soul Sugar Podcast, check out our Instagram, which is at Soul Sugar Co. We'll be updating there when the episodes go live and what they're going to be about and all of that good stuff. And when we're recording, we'll do behind the scenes stuff. So at Soul Sugar Co, check it out. That's it for today's video. Looking forward to sharing more homestead content with you guys, and looking forward to recording podcast episodes for you. Thank you all for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also, definitely make sure you are subscribed to my channel if you are not already, so that you don't miss any new content. I will see you all next week in an all new video. Thanks for watching. Bye.